Yeah. Okay. I have Plat. Okay. Can you grab one second in my office? I left it on the desk in there. Thank you. What time is your concert?
That's why I kind of gave it. I think they are. I think they're mostly families, but I got to see what it looks like. Anyway, the story, this picture.
Come on. All right. Okay, we're going to get started. Welcome to City Council. Sorry we're starting a few minutes late. We had a couple of last-minute technical difficulties. Tonight we have Pastor Greg Wright with the Westside Baptist Church here to give us our invocation. Pastor Wright?
Let's pray. Father, we thank you for the privilege we have of living in a free country and of gathering together this evening to conduct business and to care about the concerns and affairs of our community. We pray for your blessing. We come to you for that. We pray that you would give wisdom to our council members in social matters and in matters of health and concerns. We pray for our police force, that you would give them safety and wisdom and effectiveness. We pray for our other first responders, that you would give them protection and capability. We also pray, Lord, for our community to have continued rain. We pray for a good measure of that in a timely way. We pray for the upcoming elections, that you would continue to lead and put in place who you would have to be in positions of authority. We ask, Lord, that you would give wisdom to our council in matters of growth, and we pray that you would use them to continue to give us a great community, that we could truly live a quiet and a peaceable life, a life that's pleasing and honoring to you. And so we bring these things before you for your blessing and for your help. And we pray this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor. We appreciate that. The Marine Corps League, some members of the Marine Corps League are here tonight, and they are going to lead us in our invocation. I mean, not our pledge, sorry.
That too. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before you sit, come on up to the podium. We have Pat Lisi. I know I'm struggling. And do you want to introduce who you have with us and
Yes.
why you're here?
Okay, so I'm Pat Lisi, the Commandant of the local Marine Corps League, Detachment 1270. With us today is our chaplain, Jerry Harris. Please the crowd, please. And this is his wife. She is also a member. This is Margaret Harris. And Bill Fortune. Oh, that's right. Bill Fortune is a member, obviously, and our photographer, public relations, that sort of thing. So we want to get a couple pictures today as we present a check to the city for the Gold Star Family Memorial Project.
Brian and I'll happily come down and accept your check.
Jerry, where you stand on that, Pat, you stand on the right.
The other right?
The other right? Yeah, the right. That way.
This way.
Yeah. And put them on the left. Yeah, right in there. Oh, it's right next to you.
The other right?
So I want the check and the handshake.
Yeah, sure. Well, gotta make sure that I don't get people with their eyes shut.
May we be excused, Mayor?
You may be excused, yes. So for those of you who may not know, our Gold Star Family's Memorial Monument, that money is going toward that. It is being built in Town Square, and our dedication for that memorial monument will be on September 10th at noon. We are very excited. It's going to be awesome. The governor's going to be here to speak, and some of the high-ups in the military that Brian knows. So, all right, we're going to start, Adam, with canvassing the election.
Okay, item number 1 is the canvass of the 2021 municipal primary election, and we have representatives from Washington County here. We'd like to ask them to come forward and present those results.
You've all seen me before. I'm Melanie Aplanapp. I'm with the Washington County Clerk's Office.
Could we ask you to speak right into that microphone?
I'm sorry.
It's
Sometimes
not quite as sensitive.
I sometimes don't get my big girl voice on sometimes. But I'm Melanie with the Washington County Clerk's Office, and I wanted to introduce you to Susan Lewis. If you haven't already met her, she is, of course, the new County Clerk Auditor, and she's in charge. Okay. Well, I just kind of want to start kind of like we always do, is to basically say thank you. The county clerk's office is really one of our functions is to do elections. This is what we do. People think that that election people work 2 days out of the year. Unfortunately, fortunately in my case, that's not the case. So we are quite busy. There's a lot of things that we do year round. But of course, we're your ballot vendor for your St. George municipal primary election. So I'm here to read in those results for you. Okay, hopefully everybody has copies. All right, for St. George Mayor, Woody Woodbury received 2,700 votes. Michelle Randall received 7,869 votes. Jimmy B. Hughes received 4,387 votes, and Brett Tolley, 908 votes. And so that was the total for the St. George mayor race. Now, of course, the reason you needed to have this race is to get it down to the 2 candidates to move on to the general election. And so those 2 people will be Michelle Randall, and Jimmy B. Hughes will move on to the November general election. Okay. All right, for St. George City Council, M. Rick Erickson had 3,320 votes. Ronald Woodbury had 2,217 votes. Kent L. Winder had 2,311 votes. Tory Bush had 565 votes. Catherine Novick had 900 votes. Greg Aldred had 3,418 votes. Brian S. Smethurst had 2,775 votes. Vardell H. Curtis had 3,871 votes. Carolyn McDonald had 2,164 votes. Of course, you did have a candidate withdraw, so there is no votes there totaled. Natalie Larson has 3,325 votes, and Michelle Tanner has 4,346 votes. So there is a little bit close race, but of course, you have 2 council seats, so you'll have 4 of these candidates that will move on. And so Michelle Tanner had the most votes, followed by Greg Aldred. Let's see,
Vardell.
Yeah, Vardell. And then Natalie Larson.
All right, council,
All right.
I need,
Well, let's wait just
Okay.
one more second. I got
Go
just
ahead.
a minute. Okay, so the other part, the other document that you will have, well, you will have later, but these are things that we usually discuss, is on election night, we counted 13,680 ballots. You won't have those on your records. Okay, they'll come on a sheet that Annette has. Okay, so in the meantime, of course, we ended up having ballots come in on election day. We had ballots come in the drop box, and of course, we had eligible mail that came in after the election day. And to supplement that election night count, we added an additional 2,365 votes to your total, to end up with 16,045 votes total for the St. George City election, which gives you a percentage rate of 30%, well, almost 31%, 30.96%. So I see Brian kind of shaking his head. Well, for a municipal election, that's actually a pretty good turnout. So historically, in 2019, for the primary election that you went by mail for the first time, you had a 28.46% turnout. So it did increase a little bit, which is great. So, and in contrast, the 2017 primary, when you were in person, you had a whopping 11.35% turnout. So it is a little better. Of course, we would love to see everyone vote in the municipal elections. We'd like to see a 90% turnout. But of course, we're gaining a little bit at a time. All right, now, just for housekeeping, of course, you'll have these records here in a little while. We were not able to count 4,176 ballots for Washington City. And I'll tell you, we'll give you the breakdown.
for the
Or St. George
county or?
City.
Okay,
Sorry,
for
St. George City. I get a little dyslexic when I get a little excited here. All right. So out of those 4,176 ballots, 510 were returned past the deadline. So they were too late. They had to be postmarked the 9th of August.
November, yeah.
Right. There were also, unfortunately, 3,459 ballots that were returned as undeliverable. Of course, we do have people who are in a constant flux of moving. So we're trying to catch them as soon as they move, and then they move again.
So those weren't ballots that people filled out and sent back. They just never got.
They just came back from
Those
the
people
post
could have
office.
went and voted
Yeah.
in person.
And a
They
lot of
didn't
them
do that.
did. A lot of them re-registered, and we were able to send them a ballot timely. And some people we will chase, and we will send confirmation cards to and see if we can get their address updated. But regardless, what's nice is this is a voter roll cleanup that happens very timely. And so we hop on them real fast and either remove them from your voter roll so they don't get another ballot, or we've updated their address. So it's kind of good. But, and just for information, this is the first time we've actually gathered that data in a data set for you. So we'll hope to knock those down a lot less the next time. All right, now we do verify every single signature. Literally every single signature has to be verified. And so in St. George City, there were 207 ballots that we could not verify, whether the signatures didn't match or they were, the ballots came back with no signature on it, they were blank. Now, these voters have been contacted. We process ballots as soon as we get them. If we notice that there's a discrepancy, we contact those voters literally within 24 hours. We're calling them on the phone, we're emailing them, or heaven forbid we can't get a hold of them that way, we send them a letter. And those people have until 5 o'clock the day before the canvass, which was yesterday, to what's called cure their situation. We had a lot that did, but we had 207 that did not. We also, so that, if you total those out, that comes up to 4,176. And what's interestingly enough is you also had in-person voting. And in-person voting, we ended up with 16 provisional ballots that are included in your totals. And we didn't have any that we had to not count. They were all approved. They were all verified as St. George City residents. And in-person voting is not very popular. You had 179 whole residents who showed up at the Dixie Center to vote on Election Day. And out of those 179, 142 were actually St. George City residents. You had 6 from the town of Ivins, and you had 31 from Washington that actually utilized that facility. So a fraction of a fraction of a percentage. But it's nice to have available. All right.
For the 142 residents of St. George that took advantage of it.
Yep, exactly. Yep. So are there any questions that you have for us?
Did you talk about overvotes?
Oh, overvotes.
Explain that one.
Yeah. Well, you know, for mayor race, you can only vote for one. So if somebody votes for 2, that's classified as an overvote, unless they've clearly identified that they've made a mistake, and then Human Eyes will then adjudicate and make that selection. Same thing for council. They can vote for up to 2. If they vote for 3 or more, that's classified as an overvote. Now, those are all adjudicated. So those will all go to Human Eyes, which is really nice. And so Christina and the team there, Susan, did the adjudication for St. George City. So it's a really nice process to go through.
So just out of curiosity, do those people get the same opportunity to cure their ballot as those that the signature doesn't match?
No, unfortunately. Yeah, they're not caught right off the bat.
Okay.
So now you do see there's some undervotes on there as well, because people here in Utah, you are not required to fully vote your ballot. You know, so if somebody decided to vote for just 1 council seat and not 2, then of course that's absolutely permissible.
Any more questions?
I just want to say they did a great job, and I was shaking my head because not that I would have won or lost makes a difference, but I get a heck of a lot more emails in my inbox than that. So if there's more people that care, they need to get out and vote.
Yes,
So
we agree. We'd like to see that 90% for you guys as well.
One more curiosity, just because I was asked and I didn't know the answer. Is there, in some places, there's an automatic recount when it's very close?
Not here in Utah. There is not, no longer an automatic recount.
Okay.
The losing candidate does need to request that from the city recorder within 3 days.
Perfect.
Melanie, last election, one of my kids, you know, their signature didn't match because I don't think most of them know how to sign their name. A lot of our younger kids, they don't use cursive anymore, right? And so he got your message And he came in, and I was just super impressed with your system. I think it works really well. I was impressed to see that he was reached out to, and he had the opportunity to come in and to fix that. So thanks. It's so much hard work for you. Thanks for all you do.
Well, it's sacred to us. So, I mean,
My daughter had it this election, so she went in and did that. So I think it does bear saying, though, that those 207 that weren't counted, if they would have voted on a voting machine, they would have not been able to overvote.
that is true.
So
That
just,
is true.
just some
Yes.
food for thought.
Absolutely. Yep. That marking device won't let you do more than the allotted number.
Right. And those signature verifications wouldn't have needed to happen because they would have done that before voting. So there are some things that people have legitimate concerns, and just saying that out there. The trade-off is we get a lot. We had obviously the participation is a lot higher.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So, but you still give people the option to show up in person as well. So
Right.
that's a good thing.
Yeah. Thank you for all you do.
You're welcome.
So did I understand?
Excuse us, we need to go do some more canvassing.
Just-
with others or something.
Yes.
One quick question. So did I understand that if a candidate did want to request a recount, it's within 3 days of today's date?
3 days of the canvass.
Thank you.
Melanie, Susan, thank you so much. I know you have a couple other cities you have to run to and do the same thing. So, Council, I'm just going to read this really quick, and then I'll take a motion. We hereby certify that the information contained in the report of the canvass of the August 10th, 2021 St. George Municipal Primary Election is accurate. The report is attached and is incorporated herein by this reference.
Mayor, motion to accept the canvas as presented.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Adam, any changes to our agenda?
Yes, and it might just be easiest if I mention those as we get to them. Items 3 and 4 will be removed from the agenda, and I'll explain why. This brings us to the consent calendar. There are 3 items. These items are all administrative in nature. They've been reviewed by staff. They comply in every respect to city ordinance, and staff recommends approval. If the council would like to remove any of these for discussion, we're happy to do that. Otherwise, we would accept that direction from council.
Council, any questions on the consent calendar?
Motion to accept consent calendar as presented.
Second. Oh, sorry.
Motion by Danielle, seconded by Brian. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, item number 3 is being removed at the request of staff. This is just a mix-up on the dates as far as when the public hearing needs to be held. So we'll postpone that to a future agenda. We'll have that renoticed when it's appropriate. And then item number 4, about 10 minutes prior to the meeting, we received an email from Washington City that said, hey, can we discuss this item? Something had come up. They wanted to clarify a detail on this item. Our intent here has always been to work closely with Washington City on this. We want to make sure we get it right. This is actually about a right-of-way, and then that would clarify maintenance responsibilities going forward. So we're happy to accommodate that request. We would just recommend to council to table this until the next regular meeting of the city council.
Motion to table item number 4.
Second.
Motion by Jimmy, seconded by Vardell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will table that. Item
Okay,
number 5.
and then we'll ask staff to take care of our land use items for us.
All right. Moving on to item number 5. This is to consider approval of a petition to designate a local landmark site for the Friedrich Blake home on approximately 0.21 acres located at 135 South and 100 East. Okay. Hopefully this works. I've had problems with this in the past. Let me just explain how I'm going to go through this. I'm just going to go over this house and the what they're presenting as far as becoming a local landmark. And then after I go over this specific location, I'm going to go over the criteria for becoming a landmark site here in St. George, and then we'll go from there. So general location map, 135 South, 100 East. There it is right there, pretty close to downtown. And please don't do this. Okay. All right, so Friedrich Blake home, this was built, they don't know the exact date, but it was in the 1870s. It was built by Benjamin Friedrich Blake for his son Friedrich Blake, and Benjamin was a master craftsman or a woodworker. I can't even remember what you call those people. So as you can see, this is actually a very nice looking home that he built for his son. It is considered a central passage home in that it's one of those symmetrical homes where you have the fireplaces on both sides and the windows all match top and bottom. Moving on, these are just some pictures of the front of the home. As you can see, it's in a little bit of a disrepair, but we'll go over that a little bit later. There were a couple of additions. This was one, but they don't know when these were done. They're assuming they were done pretty soon after the home was built. There's a picture of the front door. And we've got the south side here. That's another picture of the south side. The rear of the home, obviously this French door here is newer as well. That's a change from the original structure. And then this is the other part. There were two additional or two add-ons. This is the other one, the back and the towards the side. So back to what the applicant is proposing. What they would like to do is refinish this home, repair the stucco, repaint it, paint all of the shutters as well as fix the trim work. A lot of it's kind of falling apart right now. So this is how it's going to they're proposing it to look after they finish rehabbing the front of it. Here on the side of the house, they do want to add, this window right here is not there right now. They would like to add it, and this is in the living room. There's usually two windows that frame the fireplace, but for some reason they didn't put in that window, so they would like to add that. It is on the side of the house, and it's not facing the right-of-way on that. Here's the rear of the home. They would like to add a window up here. There's a bathroom up there on that second floor, and they'd like to extend it out to this area. And then there is a balcony up there, but there's no railing, and they'd like to add some railing for protection, as well as just adding some steps down, just for safety purposes. This house does have a plaque. It is considered one of our significant properties, but it is not on our landmark, but it does have one of our plaques out in front already. Now I'd like to go over the criteria of what we require as a city to become a landmark structure. These first three items are items that they have to meet every one of these criteria. First of all, they have to be within the boundaries of St. George. Second, they have to be built before 1970. This home meets both of those criteria. The third item is they can't have any major alterations or additions to the home that has obscured their significant historic features. The additions that were made, we feel like those were made long enough ago, pretty much close to when the house was built, so that it really kind of fits in line with the home. So that's that. Now, the following 5 items are items that the applicant must meet just one of them. So the first one is it has to be, if it's on the National Register, which this house is not, if it's associated with significant events, in the history of St. George, or even in the history of the state or the United States together. So this one, it is associated, the person that built it, Benjamin Friedrich Blake, owned a carpenter shop, one of the first carpenter shops here in St. George. He also helped, him and his son also helped work building many of the buildings in St. George that we have now. The third item is associated with a person that is significant, and we feel like that, yes, this person are the Blakes, who helped quite a bit here in the beginning of St. George's history. The fourth item is it has significant architecture or construction. One of the items that it lists down in here is that if it's a master in their field, and this was a master carpenter that built this home, so it is considered one. It meets this goal or this criteria. And then the last one is there's archaeological significance, and there is not any archaeological significance with this home. So with each home, these are the criteria that you have to go through. You have to meet the first three, and then one of the last five. So we did take this to the Planning Commission and the Historic Preservation Commission. Both of them did recommend approval of this local landmark nomination and possible motion, and I can answer any questions if you have.
Questions for Carol? It's a cool old house.
It is. It's beautiful. I'm excited because it doesn't look very good if you've seen it lately.
Right.
It's
So Frederick Blake also had a brother named Benjamin Blake.
Yes.
And his son was Cecil Blake. That happens to be my stepfather.
Oh, really? Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah, so I didn't know this was coming, but
Yeah.
I know this house pretty well.
Yeah, and I didn't mention it, but the applicant also did go to the Historic Preservation Commission with their list of rehabilitations, and that was recommended approval for staff to continue with their rehab work on that.
Well, and that's a question I have. So for historic preservation, you're talking about the renovations they're doing and the upgrades and things. Is that required? So when we make a landmark designation, is it required to update the Hallam? No, it's not.
It's not required, no. But they would like to, so it's.
Okay.
So they are proposing it. I just thought I'd add it in just because it's exciting that they're fixing it up. But no, it's not a requirement.
Okay. Can I make a comment on it too? Just a comment would be, I think this home is definitely a great prospect. The comment that I'd like to make is from the home that we spoke at a couple weeks ago, I didn't make this official request last time. I'd like to make it on this one. As we look at these historic preservations, I'd like it for us to look at our code, just make a request, and everyone else can see, just to make sure that we are preserving the right homes, and then when we do, they keep that historic preservation. So as we look at accessory dwelling units and things, I'd just like for us to make official request to look at that.
Yeah, I was just noticing, Carol, when you were talking about that right now in our code it says before 1970, which is kind of interesting. At what point does 1970 to 1980, maybe there's some architecture in there that eventually, somebody wants to preserve. So that might be an interesting part of it to look at also.
And that's because there is a 50-year time frame with the National Historic Registry, so it just corresponds to the number. And just to comment, if I could quickly on your remark, we've discussed this at length as staff, and as part of our downtown master plan, we do want to discuss the overall strategy with this. What are we trying to accomplish? We have actually, as you may be aware, by gaining this status, the home then becomes eligible potentially to be used for nightly rentals. That's another thing that we ought to discuss from a policy perspective and say, is that still something that's necessary? Is that what we need to encourage the reinvestment in these homes to preserve them? So that'll be coming really soon as we talk about our downtown master plan.
Okay, great. That's great.
Any other questions? If not, I'm ready for a motion.
Mayor, I'd make a motion that we approve the petition to designate a local landmark site for the Frederick Blake home located at 135 South 100 East Street.
Second.
Motion by Vardell, seconded by Brian. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, item number 6 is consider approval of an ordinance amending the Desert Canyons PDR Planned Development Residential Zone in order to review elevations and site layout on approximately 12.43 acres located at Desert Canyon Parkway along Castile Drive and Street 9 shown on the plan, known as Desert Providence at Desert Canyon. So here you can kind of see an aerial view of it. Here you have Desert Canyon's Parkway, which will kind of wrap around here and go along there. Here we have the general plan map. You can see the majority portion of this is residential. This small portion here at one time Desert Canyons was going to have a golf course. That's been removed from the plan. So that is just, that needs to be corrected on our map. The zoning map, again, as mentioned, shows PDR. Here's the site plan layout of the proposal, and it does connect and is fairly similar to the existing Desert Playa development there. Just elevation of maybe some of the proposed homes, and then these are just some of the entrance signs to the different projects within Desert Canyon. And then here we have the materials board. And here's your Desert Canyon zoning map. If you can see my mouse here, it's located approximately right over here in this area. With that, I can answer any questions, and I believe the applicant's here too.
Questions for Mike? None? Questions for the applicant? Motion.
I make a motion to approve the ordinance amending the Desert Canyons PDR zone in order to review the elevations and site layout on approximately 12.43 acres located at Desert Canyon Parkway along Castile Drive and Street 9 shown on the plan, known as Desert Providence at the Desert Canyon.
Second. Motion by Brian, seconded by Danielle. This is an ordinance requiring a roll call vote. All in favor, starting with Danielle. Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, item 7 is in the same area. It's to consider approval of an ordinance amending Desert Canyon's PDR Planned Development Residential Zone to review elevations and site layout on approximately 4.25 acres located just south of Desert Providence and east along Castillo Drive, south of Southern Parkway, known as Desert Reserve Phase 3. Here again is an aerial view of it. Where is my mouse? Oh, there we go. So this Desert Reserve is right here. The previous project, that Desert Providence, is just down here just to the north of it. Again, the zoning map is PDR. And here's the site layout. It's 19 total units. The density is 4.47 units per acre. Here are just some elevations of the proposed homes. And again, the entrance signs. And then the materials board. And again, the zoning map, and it's approximately located over here in this area. With that, I can answer any questions if you have any.
Questions for Mike?
It's very similar to the one we just reviewed in terms of what they're asking for, it looks like. Yeah.
If no questions, I'm ready for a motion.
Mayor, I'd make a motion that we approve an ordinance amending Desert Canyon's PDR to review elevations and site layout on approximately 4.25 acres located just south of Desert Providence and east along Castillo Drive, south of the Southern Parkway, known as a Desert Reserve, Phase 3 at Desert Canyon.
I'll second.
Motion by Vardell, seconded by Greg. All in favor, starting with Vardell.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries.
Mayor, if I could just make a quick comment, just for the applicant, on the site plan that's been submitted for these projects that the council just approved, there's a lot of green for the landscaping area. We assume that that will not be sod. We would just like to make sure that as you go through your plans and you're working on your preliminary plat, that the amount of turf grass is limited, and we'll be expecting to see plans that are water-wise and much more oriented for desert landscaping, xeriscaping. Thank you.
All right. Item number 8 is to consider approval of an ordinance amending the desert color PDR zone for a 175-unit pod to be known as Desert Color Regency Plat A on approximately 60.79 acres located east of I-15, south of Southern Parkway, and west of Auburn Hills. So far you've seen several pods related to Desert Color. You've seen Auburn Hills, you've seen Desert Color Resort, you've seen Sage Haven. This is the next pod, so it's the next neighborhood. So, and they are referring to it, like I said, as Regency. It's a new builder, hasn't built in Desert Color yet, and so we wanted to bring this forward to you to look at primarily their duplexes they're proposing to build in the development. So this is the aerial map. You can see Auburn Hills over here. Sage Haven is down here. The resort, the lagoon is in this area right there, and the subject property in red. You can see the general plan calls for residential in this area, and the zoning is, as I mentioned, PDR, so it's a planned development residential. This is a look at the plat. You can see the roadway coming from Auburn Hill. Auburn Hills is this way. Goes off the map here, but that's where they'll gain their access. Just going back, you can kind of see that right in here. They'll come up from that way. Again, 175 units. Most of them are single family. There are a number of multifamily though, and they're all duplexes, and that is the ones that are in blue. Those that are in blue are the duplexes. There are 52 that will be duplex. The rest will all be single family. You can see right here, well, going back, this area that's hatched is area that's set aside for a clubhouse. That will be their own. It will be unique to them. Oh, and I should also point out that that Regency is slated as a 55 and older community. So a little bit different than the other communities in Desert Color. Just something to keep in mind. Like I said, though, this clubhouse will be for their exclusive use in Regency. They'll also be able to use the lagoon and the other clubhouse and so forth. That'll be part of their amenities as well. And you'll see that come forward before you for your approval in the future as well. These are the elevations that you saw. They've made a couple of changes since the packet went out, but this was to be a Desert Craftsman, Territorial Ranch, and then the Desert Modern. They are pulling the Desert Modern for now. They want to make some changes to that, and they haven't had a chance to do that. So you will see that come forward to you probably around the same time you see the clubhouse. But so we're not doing the Desert Modern. They've made these changes. This is now taking the place of this Desert Territorial. So they've enlarged some of the entryways and the patios and things like that, just to enhance them just a little bit. And then this is the Spanish, the Desert Spanish. And then the materials. Planning Commission heard this request and recommended approval of the application. If you have any other questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
So how is this particular portion of the development differentiated or defined or identified as 55 and better?
How is it? Or
Is it?
it is, yeah.
Okay.
It will be. Mhm. Yep.
Question about the homes. So these are single-family homes. They're just side-by-side connected, is that right? Is that
Yeah,
what I'm
the
reading?
ones in blue. Yes.
Oh, so
that's
those are just the blue ones. So the other ones are
Right.
just lots
They're
with
all-
single families on them.
Exactly.
Okay. Just
So it's mixed. Any other questions for Dan?
Yeah, Dan, when you say they pulled the Desert Modern, do you mean like none of this is going to have Desert Modern, or they're bringing another?
They'll still have the Desert Modern,
They're
but
just
they
bringing
need to,
something
they
back.
wanted to tweak the elevations. And so
Okay.
before they build any of them, they'll come back for your approval.
Got it.
So for now, they're just putting a temporary hold on those.
seemed like a good thing. That was the one I was looking at and going, I liked all of them, but that one looked a little different. So I think that was a good choice by them.
Greg wasn't going to buy one of the Desert Modern.
I was going to reject it hard.
He has a few years before he can move in there anyway.
It's coming.
Any other questions? If not, I'm ready for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve an ordinance amending the Desert Color PDR development zone for a 175-unit pod to be known as Desert Color Regency Plat A on approximately 60.79 acres located east of I-15 and south of Southern Parkway and west of Auburn Hills.
Second.
Motion by Greg, seconded by Brian. All in favor, starting with Danielle.
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to item number 9, and this is to consider approval of an ordinance amending the Ventana Ridge PDC Plan Development Commercial Zone for a name change to Nichols Landing, a conceptual site plan, elevations and colors and materials to be known as Nichols Landing on approximately 6.22 acres and to be located at the southeast corner of 2450 South and River Road. And let me go ahead and start my presentation. I want to mention on this item, I did put up, you should have gotten this up at your.
We did, thank you.
That was a comment from a concerned citizen. Okay, so location, here we've got 2450 South with River Road running down. It's this location. And general plan is commercial. And obviously it's a PDC, that's why we're here today. Okay, so a little bit of history on this project. In 2018, you did hear the Ventana Ridge PDC development, and this was it. This was what was approved. There weren't any elevations. It was just basically the site plan, the name, and the use list that was approved. However, at this time, and there were 6 buildings total, at this time, the applicant would like to change that northern portion, everything except for this one unit down here, and change it to this, which it will be 6 units or 6 buildings. So they're going to be adding one more building, so it'll be 7 total where it was 6. However, the total square footage is actually a little bit less than it was before because the buildings are a little bit smaller. So this up here is now going to be called Nichols Landing, and this one down here it will still be called Ventana Ridge. It'll just have 1 unit. And everything stays the same as far as the way that it's lined up. They'll still have their shared parking. Everything will be the same that way. Okay, so I want to show you the elevations. Now, all of these elevations are kind of hard to tell what they're going to look like because of their black and white photos, and they're very similar. So here's buildings A and B, building C, building D. I've got some colored photos after this, which makes it a little bit easier to see. Building E, they all have pretty much the same plan. This one is a 2-story one, so it's a little bit different. Building F. This is Building F, a 3D rendering with the colors on it. This property does sit down a little bit lower than the property behind it. So this first level you'll see coming up, it's a little bit lower. Here we go. You can see it, that there's a little bit of a dip. There will be residential kind of all the way around this project, so they will be required to do all their buffers when they put these in. This one's Building A, the front of Building A. This one's the rear of Building A. This is kind of looking out at the project. Here's another view from River Road. Now, the use list, when Ventana Ridge was first approved, this was the use list that they brought forward. And this is what staff kind of presented back to the applicant again, saying we'd like to keep that same use list. We did take this to the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission did agree with staff, however, and that was to remove 7 of the uses from the original list. And that's exactly what they did with Ventana Ridge, and doing the same with Nichols Landing. However, these 2 items, these were approved on the original one, but the applicant, staff felt the need to remove them, but the applicant did want to keep them in, and they were telemarketing or call center, and then a television and radio center or station. The reason why we took out, staff recommended not to include telemarketing, is because the parking for telemarketing centers is so much larger, the requirement. It's more like a restaurant than an office building. And so they've already got the parking all figured out. They do have some food restaurant establishments. They do have the rest office. If they were to throw in a call center, they really are limiting themselves to the use. But they decide, or they, during Planning Commission, the applicant did come forth and say, we understand that if we get in a call center, then we won't be able to put in all the restaurants that we want to put in. So that's how that went. So the Planning Commission did recommend approval with the removal of, like I said, the telemarketing and the television radio station. The television radio station, that one, mainly because it's just not very pretty. Usually they have giant antennas on top of their buildings, and with all the residential around, that's kind of the reason why that one was requested to remove. But this is the recommendation of the Planning Commission to remove those 2 items from the use list, and then also that obviously they'll have to meet all the other regulations when they come through with their site plan. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
I just always like your PowerPoints, Carol. Oh. You always class them up.
Yeah, they're pretty cool.
Sorry, John, Wes, Mike, Dan.
That's actually my favorite part of my job, making the PowerPoints.
Any questions for Carol?
I was a colorer as a kid.
So Carol, for something this big, we would only require 2 bicycle parking spots?
Yes.
2?
The regulations do say 2 per project.
And this is
or
considered an
development.
entire project?
Yeah,
not each
and
building?
we do recommend that they add in more, and most people are pretty
I bring that up because the commercial subdivision just north of this, if you go down there any day of the week, it's not as much bicycles as it is bikes, scooters, all sorts of things just piled up down there because it's so close to all that residential. There's a lot of kids that come and families that come and ride in. So just something for them to think about. I guess we're not requiring it, but it would be nice to have more than that.
And when we go through the site plan review, I will actually be the one that will be looking at it, and I'm a pro biker, so I will be asking them if they could add in a few more, because it is difficult, to promote that alternative transportation, and yet there's nowhere to put your bike once you get there. So
right.
I
think especially with so many families embracing kind of like the e-bike, I see a lot of people riding e-bikes out there, and I think if there's parking for it, it gives you, like you say, just one more opportunity to ride that to the commercial center.
And typically most of the buildings will have space for the bike racks. So that's something we'll definitely try to get them to put in a few more than just 2.
So off the original use list, there were 7 items that were removed.
The original, that one's kind of a little confusing. The original use list, the applicants, when we brought Ventana Ridge, this was that use list that they brought forward. And the applicant, and then during the Planning Commission, they removed all those ones that have the red lines through them. The applicants, when they brought this project forward, they were okay with what we approved before. So I just used the original use list. They just turned in one that didn't have any red lines through them, so they're okay with all of them except, like I said, those two.
And they spoke in opposition to having those come off, but that was still the recommendation from the Planning Commission.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
No action.
More questions for Carol or the applicant?
Hold on. It's the applicant.
Yeah.
Will you state your name,
Dave
Dave?
Weller, yeah. No, I thought I gave those two up at Planning Commission. I don't have a problem with those going away. But I did want to clarify that the property on the south will still be part of the project. All we're doing is changing the name, but they aren't ready to build. And so since I had sold that off at the point that they're ready to build that dentist office, then they'll need to come back. But it's still the same CC&Rs, everything. We just don't have anything to help modify their property right now.
So you're okay with pulling telemarketing, call center, and
Yes.
television, radio off? Okay.
Yes.
And the property to the south, they'll have cross easements and everything. It'll look just like it's part of the...
Yes, it's still the same cross parking and everything. Nothing's changed there. There's a Ventana up by the mall, and so we were asked by staff to change the name, so that's why we changed it.
You'll add some extra parking for bikes?
Pardon?
You'll add some extra parking for bikes?
We'll look at it, yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
And I will say that south building, they will need to come back because their elevations are not presented here. So they did not have any elevations when it was first approved. So they will be back.
You know, everyone complains about our traffic, and one way to help mitigate traffic is having more commercial, neighborhood commercial. So I like when we add it.
Agreed.
If there's no more questions, I'm ready for motion.
I'll make the motion. I move that we approve an ordinance amending the Ventana Ridge PDC zone for a name change to Nicholas Landing, a conceptual site planned elevations and colors and materials to be known as Nicholas Landing, approximately 6.22 acres.
Second.
Is that as recommended with the removals?
Yes, thank you, Danielle.
Okay.
With the recommended removals.
Second.
Motion by Greg, seconded by Vardell. All in favor, starting with Danielle. Aye.
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 Motion carries.
All right, thank you. Item number 10 is to consider approval of an ordinance changing the zone from R110 single-family residential with a minimum lot size of 10,000 square feet to R2 multiple family on approximately 0.41 acres located on Bloomington Drive, Lot 29 in the Bloomington Country Club, Phase 11. And I will go over the staff report. Okay, so just a general plan map here, medium density residential. And the zoning is R110. It's kind of funny. These are all residences here, but for some reason they're zoned open space, but they are single-family residents, and then we do have some multiple families across the street and here to the east. This is what they want to do. They want to turn it to R2. They want to go from R1 to R2. Now, R2, just for your information, that 0.41 acres would equal approximately 17,860 square feet. So turning that size of a lot to an R2, they really can only get 2 buildings in there with a maximum of 4 units, 2 duplexes. You can only go up to a duplex in an R2. However, that's even a little iffy because there's quite a few setbacks that we have, so it might even be less than that. So that's what the applicant is proposing. We did have some customer comments, and they were in your packet, or not customer, but citizen comments, and they're in your packet. The recommendation, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of this zone change, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
The current zoning is R110, correct?
Yes.
So I was reading the comments of the individuals who who are not in favor of this. They were talking about the view obstruction that will happen. If we leave this as R110, the individual that builds here still has the opportunity to build a 2-story house and have the same obstructions. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions for Carol? Any questions for the applicant? No one wants to talk to you, Matt. But welcome back. Then I'm ready for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we consider, or actually that I move that we approve an ordinance changing the zone from R110 to R2 on approximately 0.41 acres located on Bloomington Drive, Lot 29, Bloomington Country Club, Phase 11.
Second.
Motion by Vardell, seconded by Brian. All in favor, starting with Vardell.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries.
Item, item 11 is to consider approval of an ordinance changing the zone from R110, 10,000 square foot minimum lot size, to PDR, planned development residential, on approximately 34.24 acres, generally located southeast of the Gap Canyon Parkway and 1790 West intersection, known as DeVario, PA1, or Planning Area 1. You've seen several of these now, and this is the next proposed high density location in DeVario. This is the DeVario area outlined in blue, and we can reference back to this if you have questions about traffic and roadways and things like that. But just to give you an idea, this right here is where we're looking at in this bottom southern, southeast corner. Right now it's zoned R110, and the general plan calls for medium density residential. This is their land use. You've seen this now quite a few times, and this area here is PA1, and that calls for high density residential, which under their development agreement allows up to 15 units per acre. That area. So this is the proposal. Given all that, this is the proposal that is before us tonight. You can see a number of stacked units and then a number of townhomes. And the stacked units, there are 17 buildings equaling 408. Here, I'll get to this. This will tell us what it is. 408 units, so 17 24 plexes, and then 23 fourplex for a total of 500 units. So going back to this, right now, Gap Canyon Parkway ends right about here. So they would need to build Gap Canyon Parkway all the way to their property line, which is also the city boundary. And so that would be their responsibility to build that. They would also have to build Skyrocket Drive, and I'll go back out to this just so that we can kind of see where we're talking about. Skyrocket Drive, again, we're looking right here, would come up, Gap Canyon would come down this way, Skyrocket Drive would come right through the middle and then connect up here. You can kind of see it graded in at this point. This property owner is eager to get that done. The city has talked to them quite a bit, and I know that this applicant of this application tonight has also been in discussion with that property owner to coordinate the building of Skyrocket Drive. Staff's been, that's been one of the concerns that we've had, is that there's proper ingress and egress and roadways to and from the property. And we feel that that is key to have Skyrocket Drive, so that there's a second point of access for all these units. So, so again, going back to this, that's what that is. That's Skyrocket Drive. And again, the applicant's here. He can tell you what those discussions have been like if you want to hear from their point of view. But just so you kind of get an understanding, and in fact, that would be a condition that we would request that if you want to approve this tonight, that you make that condition that Skyrocket Drive be completed. And I've got some language here that we can read through here in a minute. So just going through this, again, this is just a breakdown of what's being proposed. You have the amenity table. They're proposing a perimeter trail around the development, pickleball courts, boweries, tot lots, bike storage, dog park for their amenities. They are meeting and exceeding the requirement for open space and for their amenity square footage as well. And this shows kind of these areas in red, those areas that they have set aside for amenity areas. There's a lot more open space, like this whole portion up here will be open space because it's a hillside. So that'll remain. And then there are other areas that will remain open space as well, but these areas that they've kind of hatched in red are the actual usable amenity areas. This is a look at the townhomes. This is a duplex, but they will have fourplexes. In order to accomplish that, they would basically just use that same unit and multiply that to be a fourplex or whatever they need it to be. But again, that would be 92 units total of townhomes. And then this is a look at the stacked units. These would all be apartments and 3 stories. And this is a look at the color scheme that they're looking at, some renderings. And I'm sorry, my camera kind of washed it out a little bit. It's not as yellow as it makes it look. And then rendering of the townhome. And this is a look at the Parks and Trails plan. Again, we're looking right down here. They've noted this as open space, and they are proposing to keep that as such. So with that, Planning Commission reviewed this. There were a couple people that came out, not nearly as many as we've seen on other projects such as PA 17 or PA 3. Planning Commission ultimately heard the public hearing and made a positive recommendation for the application. If you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer them. The applicant is here, as well as representative from DeVario.
Now, we were talking, where's Wes? You weren't in staff meeting, but, so we are engineering, we're currently in engineering, right, on the traffic light for here and Canyon View for Skyrocket when it's completed.
Right. I think they haven't awarded them to the engineers yet, but they have 2 different engineers that they're working out, one to do Canyon View and one to do Skyrocket Road and start that process. Yep. Because
we would definitely want the road done and the traffic signals done before any of this is done.
And those are currently included in the fiscal year budget 2022.
Right. And as Dan pointed out, we've been working. Curtis Rogers, who owns this piece, he's really pushing to get the road constructed all the way through here on his property. In fact, they're submitting drawings coming up to be able to get that built here. And so they've been working with the property owner here, and basically they've been working on just the alignment. So they're anxious to get it built, and like Dan said, we've talked to them, and they're anxious to get it built, and so we're just making that a condition that be constructed.
Hey, I have 2 questions, but one of them's for you, Wes, so I'll ask it first. Is this going to be along a bus route? Will we add a bus route with this much density?
I don't know I don't think Cameron's looked at that yet, but that's something we can do, and I'll visit with Cameron and bring that up to him.
Okay.
Yep.
Dan, does this development agreement, does it trigger at some point completion of commercial along with density so that the housing density matches the neighborhood commercial?
I don't think that it triggers commercial. There are things like, there are other things that it triggers at certain points, like traffic studies and things like that. And we're not quite there, we're getting there. But as far as the commercial, I'm not aware of a trigger for the commercial.
When are you guys going to start the commercial?
You can correct me if I'm wrong.
Hello, good evening.
Hi.
Mark Teepin, DeVario. So yeah, there's nothing that really requires commercial relative to the number of residential units. We are currently working with the developer now to do a PD mixed-use zone, which will involve some commercial in the center of our community. We'll be bringing that to the city for approval probably the next 3 months.
Mark, while you're there, could you speak to what type of management approach you'll have for this project? Is this going to have its own HOA underneath the master HOA? Talk to us about that.
So that would be a question for the applicant itself on this
Okay.
piece of property, but yeah, we do have the master HOA.
Mark Garza. Yes, we'll have an HOA that would maintain the roadways because there'll be some private roadways within there, trash pickup and so forth. So there will be an HOA that will be part of the master HOA as well for the trails and so forth. I think there's some improvements along Gap Canyon Road and so forth. So we understand the necessary need for that roadway, needing the second connection and so forth. So we're not an objection to it. Like the staff mentioned, we are working with the other property owner. We would ask that, possibly that we could get underway with construction and that be a condition of like CFO or something like that, where prior to occupancy of the buildings, that road needed to be completed. But we would hope to get things going and building that road as we're moving through the project for our first phase.
If we consider construction vehicle access, is that something you think you could work out, at least temporarily, to keep those vehicles?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we could cut something in, put down a drivable surface or what have you.
I think that would be preferable.
Yeah,
So
we could
that
do something
means
like
none
that.
of the construction vehicles will be driving on the main road?
Correct. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we could work on those things.
Okay.
Any other questions?
I got a question for staff, and it's on parking. For these high-density apartment complexes, the garage stalls, I remember we've had discussions on that as those being counted as part of the required parking. But I can't remember exactly where we got. I know that we're concerned with just having enough parking in these. Is that something we want to look at?
I think the concern, if I recall, is that sometimes they like to charge for
It's an
those,
additional cost.
right?
Yeah.
I think the last time we did this, you placed a condition on there that they shall not charge for them. That's my recollection.
Yeah, that's how I recall as well. Just
Yeah.
making it so that all the parcels the parking spaces are used, so we're not running out of parking spaces.
Yeah, for sure, because they are counting those as part of their required parking stalls. So I would recommend that if that's a concern for you, that you place that condition on there as well.
If you recall, our requirement requires that all available parking places per ordinance be available. And so we had that discussion on putting a condition, but I think the outcome was we don't have to put a condition because it's already a required parking stall to be available for the residents. So we don't need to put a condition in regards to the covered parking.
Not covered, but the garage. I think it was the garage. Was it? Same thing.
Same thing. Yep.
So by available, like that verbiage means available could still mean extra charge, right? Does it say
No,
that's not allowed?
it's required parking
Okay.
per ordinance, which means it's designated to those units.
Okay.
Meaning you pay one base price, and then that unit includes that parking space.
That unit gets the 2 parking stalls, correct.
So
So in theory, they could charge for parking if they had over the required amount.
That is correct. And so those required per ordinance are required to be available. If they want to provide an additional garage or whatnot beyond the required, then they could charge for those.
Perfect.
Mr. Garza, I see you nodding your head. Are you in agreement with what's being discussed? I'd just like to get this on the record.
Yes, this did come up at Planning Commission, and we have no intent of renting those for additional cost. So.
That's great.
Any other questions, council? I'll entertain a motion if not.
I make a motion to approve the ordinance changing the zone from R110, single family 10,000 square foot minimum lots, to PDR on approximately 34.24 acres generally located southwest of the Gap Canyon Parkway.
Southeast. Southeast.
Oh, southeast of the Gap Canyon Parkway and 1790 West intersection known as Devario Planning Area.
Councilman Smethurst, would you consider amending and adding that the roadway be completed before this can be finalized at Skyrocket Road, and that also no construction equipment will be driven on the main roadway until Skyrocket Road's completed?
Yes.
Okay. And I'll second.
Motion by Brian, seconded by Danielle. All in favor, starting with Vardell.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries.
Okay, item 12 is to consider approval of an ordinance changing the zone from R110, single-family residential 10,000 square foot minimum lot size, to R17, single-family residential 7,000 square foot minimum lot size on approximately 9.782 acres, located south of Southern Parkway and west of Desert Canyons Parkway, known as Desert Solace. So here's an aerial view of the approximate location here. You can see up here to the north there's Southern Parkway, and then off to the east over here is Desert Canyon Parkway. The general plan designation here, you can see, is residential, and the zoning map, as mentioned, designates it as R112, R110, and a small portion in C2. Here's the proposed layout of the single-family homes. 22 units for a density of 2.4 units per acre. And again, the zoning map, and it's located over in the west side over in this area here. And with that, I can answer any questions if you have any.
Questions for Mike? Then I'm ready for a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve an ordinance changing the zone from R110 to R17 on approximately 9.782 acres located south of Southern Parkway and west of Desert Canyons Parkway, known as Desert Solace Phase 4.
Second.
Motion by Vardell, seconded by Jimmy. All in favor, starting with Greg.
Aye.
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 Motion carries.
So this next item, let's see, item 13 and 14 are together. It's the same project. If the council will remember, earlier this year, we reviewed a Hillside application for the Desert Garden Cove. It was tabled at that time because there was concern with the cuts and how they were going to be mitigated to kind of hide those. But with that, I'm going to let Wes get up and go through that Hillside.
Okay, as Mike said, the next two items are the Hillside and the zone change application for this desert, what's it called? Desert Garden Cove project. Anyway, just go over this really briefly. So this is the slope analysis map. They put their table together here. All of the categories, 20 to 30, they fall less than the 30% that they're allowed to disturb. The 30 to 40, they do go above it, but there was some disturbed area in here that the Hillside Committee felt was not consistent with the topography, and they said that didn't need to count towards the 30 to 40. They were barely over. I think they were at 5.6, and you can disturb up to 5. And then there was a little bit of 40% that they said right through here was not consistent and actually were man-made, and that's why they show as greater than 40% slopes. So right there's their disturbance line as far as how these calculations were done as far as their disturbance areas. And so that's what Hillside recommended. Again, this is the layout. This is once they get here, they go up a 1-to-1 slope with a little drainage ditch back here to catch the flows. I did read the geotech report. There's two types of materials they looked at in their borings. One was a mudstone that was down deeper, and then the clay sand above. The mudstone, they said they could slope it at a 1-to-1, which is what this is. The clay sand had to go to a 2-to-1 slope. So it may change. Right now they're proposing to do a rock wall right along here, about 6 feet, and then slope up. Based on the soils, it may change where they have to add an additional rock wall. We'll just have to look at that because their slopes are 1-to-1. And so as long as they're in that mudstone, it's a competent material that they could slope it at that. If it's not, they may have to put another additional wall in there to account for that 2-to-1 slope through there. So that was just that. And then here's just a brief, I drew a brief line based on when they staked it out there, and that's about the limit. Oh, maybe I didn't get it. Well, anyways, I lost my picture. Anyways, it kind of was showing you that. So this is their landscape plan that they presented. Where is it? Right there. And their proposal is to put trees and so forth through here to help mitigate that slope cut and to hide that slope cut through there. So that's the Hillside part of it.
Okay, I'll just briefly touch and go through this really quickly. So again, here's the site. As was mentioned, the general plan is MDR. You can see in the area that's being proposed to be built on is MDR. This outer area, which will not be built on, is the LDR, low density residential. Existing zoning is AP for administrative professional, and then this upper portion again is the R110. Here's the proposed layout of the 10 townhome units. And then this is the updated landscape plan that Wes was talking about. You can see they've added quite a bit of landscaping to it. And again, as Wes mentioned, all along back here, they're hard to see, but they've put in a bunch of trees and stuff that will grow to cover and mitigate that cut back there. Here's just some pictures of the proposed elevations. and the material board. And if council has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Questions for Mike or Wes on the Hillside? We'll do this in 2 motions, but same project.
I have a comment on the Hillside. There's things I like about this project. I like the mitigations that they put in. That is nice that they've put that in. I like that the trees would be something other than just a rock wall or something retaining. Having said that, I will stick with I recall this coming before. I know this parcel very well. I think our Hillside ordinance is under review. I think currently with projects that do have little variances that go a little bit they're still outside of Hillside ordinance. We only have a certain amount of hills. I think this is a place where we're cutting too high. And so I still don't think this is a good place for that Hillside cut in this development. That's my opinion on that one. Just want to share it.
Any questions or comments?
This has definitely been a challenging piece of land to work with. I know we've seen it a bunch of times, come in with a bunch of different plans on it. And I agree with Councilman MacArthur. I hate to see hillside cuts. I'm also not sure how we could make a cohesive neighborhood right here if they don't cut into the hill a little bit. Maybe they can make a shorter circle. Yeah, this one's tricky. Is the applicant here?
My name is Rain Christensen, and I'm the applicant for this project. This came up because of a previous submission to this project, and just to include everyone on the conversation, I came and protested with 50 of my neighbors because I was really upset about it, because they wanted to put 4 apartments, 40 total units on the hill, and I live right next to that place. So I'm with you that I wanted to protect our hill. I recently just put a rock wall up that's going to be done. If this gets approved, it would be done by the same guy. I think he does a really good job. But also for me, I think I improved my piece of property a little bit because of how much red dirt had been exposed. And right now there is red dirt that's been exposed from the previous road. And so I'm looking to provide something, and I have all my neighbors barking at me being like, you make sure that looks good, you make sure that looks clean, because we fought this and we're trusting in you. So I have a lot of pressure from my own neighbors and from myself because I live there. I do think that the way they demonstrated the cuts looked a little excessive, but that's because we wanted to show that if the rock wall, once we cut into it and we get it built, if it needs to go back more, they wanted to show the worst case scenario. That's how I feel, is where seeing what's been built, that we built 2 tiers on the bottom part to retain and then 2 more tiers on my property, that the hills retained great. And that slope has been super efficient. And some of the walls on the base have been 8 feet tall. So I feel like we kind of tested that, being quarter mile from where this property is discussed. I'm happy to answer any other questions. So,
Rain, I was here when that previous project came in, and
yes.
I did not agree with the previous project also. It was way too high of density for right there. And you put your money where your mouth is. I mean, you said, I don't want it there, so I'll just buy this piece and do something that all the neighbors can agree with.
Yeah.
And I like what you've done here.
I appreciate that.
On that slope, so the cut slope where coming down to the rock wall before the ditch.
Yes.
Would you be willing to do a vegetative rehabilitation on that slope?
Honestly, I would love to. And I had a feeling to bring in a couple. I feel like right above my rock wall, I put a little bit of vegetation before I got to the hillside. And on mine, I chose to do a little 3-foot section that just has wildflowers and some native plants. And I think it's amazing. It's so pretty to look at. And then you have the natural hill as a backdrop to it. Looks like it was never disturbed. It was always there. So I'm not going to get emotional, but I like gardening, which is why I called it Desert Garden Cove, because right now we're dealing with a lot of transients. I've got people waving bats, and I feel like if we could get a protected, space for that hill, that we're going to see less transients there. And then next up, you know, we get families and people who actually care about that area. And so to answer your question, I would be okay with that. And I think it'd look good. So.
I think that's a great mitigation. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks, Ryan.
Anything else?
Any more questions for Ryan? No? I'm ready for motion, council, if there's no more questions.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve an ordinance changing the zone from AP to R110, and R110 to PDR on approximately 6.34 acres located at 950 West Valley View Drive, known as Desert Garden Cove.
I'll second that. Do we need to include in the motion the revegetation?
I'm happy to include that with the revegetation of the hillside cut.
To me, that's a deal maker or a deal breaker.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
if we include that, I'll second.
Okay.
Motion by Danielle, seconded by Vardell. All in favor, starting with Danielle.
Aye.
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 You switched me. Aye.
Aye.
Now we'll go ahead and take a motion for item number 14.
I'll make that motion also, that we approve a hillside permit to allow the applicant to develop a proposed townhome development to be known as Desert Garden Cove on approximately 6.35 acres, located on the east side of Valley View Drive, just south of Sunset Drive.
Second.
Motion by Danielle, seconded by Vardell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Excuse me. What the heavens? There we go. Okay, so the next two items are also the same projects. If you're okay with, I just prefer if we can just run those both together. The next is the request for a hillside development permit for Netta's Knoll and a preliminary plat. This was a request for a hillside development permit to allow disturbance of areas in the hillside development overlay zone of 20 to 30, 30 to 40, and 40% above. The subject, so the property is located, here's Riverside Drive, four-master intersection. We call it Netta's Knoll. It's that piece right there at that intersection. Anyway, this is a slope analysis map. When we met out there on Hillside, they did have a little bit more into the red that they were requesting that they could disturb. So this is the most updated after the Hillside. Hillside said, no, we're comfortable with you disturbing up here, as we don't feel like this is consistent topography. It's just been man-made by all of the vehicles that have driven through there. And so they were comfortable with disturbing all this. However, and this little piece of 40 you can see right here and there. And so, but then they drew their lines here and said no disturbance of those 40% slopes. So that is kind of the most updated line. They do meet their hillside percentage of slopes except for the 40% here and there. And again, the Hillside Committee felt like those weren't contiguous to the topography. They're actually man-made by all of the disturbance that has occurred up there on top. So this is their cut and fill map. Let me see if I can find their grading plan. This is their grading plan. So I can't remember how many lots this is. 21 lots. So they would have these lots right around the perimeter and then these interior lots with one road that comes through there. So one of the conditions, there is a ridge line here. They would have to hold back 30 feet from that. As far as structures goes, structures could not be built within that 30-foot setback line. One of the concerns Hillside had was they can disturb that 30% area, that 30-foot area now, and it can be like pools, landscaping, things like that, but not structures. And so their intent is to grade up to that ridgeline setback line One of the concerns Hillside had was about pushing material over the edge and how do you keep that back. The applicant has suggested what they do is put a silt fence or something like that up there to keep that from pushing over prior to disturbance, to delineate the line and catch any of that material. But that was one of their concerns, was about pushing material. That's what the developer's proposing to help mitigate that. Let me see. One of the other concerns was the aesthetics over here. So this is, and also this disturbance area here, they felt like there's some rock area here, and I'll show you another picture. They felt like that shouldn't be disturbed as you come down this little draw right here. So they've updated their plan, and you can't quite see it there, but they've limited the disturbance now by going steeper right through here and catching grade prior to those rocks. So they still are proposing a little bit of area right there that they would have to disturb to match back to existing, but they would not get down into the rocks where before they were down into there. So that's their proposal. They also are providing the road from Riverside up to the development here. There is a proposed commercial development here that will get their access, most likely, both these two lots from here. So we're working with them and this property owners they're developing to try to make sure that that road is at an elevation that they can get access. Most likely the road will be above that, so they'll have to figure out how to get drainage through their site from the road in that really heavy storm event. But with the traffic on Riverside, we couldn't give them a full access because of the proximity of that intersection. So we are working with them. So we just asked them to provide a map that showed that they are trying to keep that as flat as possible. But we'll be working with that developer as far as that goes. Then one of their other concerns was these rock walls over here. So these are two-tiered rock walls. So you'd have two 8-foot walls, a 16-foot gap per the ordinance, and then two more 8-foot rock walls right there. There was some concern about the aesthetics. Let me see if I can bring that up. So they put together this. So this is kind of some elevation views of their property. So this is looking in that direction. You're looking from, let's just say Mall Drive over there. So this is what you would see as the site grades out. And then this is more what you would see if you're looking straight into those walls that they're proposing along that easterly side. So you'd have a lower wall here and an upper wall here with a 16-foot gap here. And they would all be rock walls through there. So that's what they're proposing. Also, these would be walkout basements on that easterly side. Usually what we do when they propose walkout basements, we put a note on the plat that says they have to be built as walkout basements, or you have to provide a grading plan and a site plan with your building permit that shows you're not impacting other lots that build as walkouts. This one, the geotechnical engineer said, no, you can't do that because of the type of soil material out there. The soil can't take additional weight. So the walkout basements on that east side have to stay as walkouts. They have to build to that because of the soil conditions out there. So that was one of the conditions. Also, they'd have to update their geotech report. At the time they went there, they had to do a little bit more analysis to verify that they have 1.5 factor of safety on these lots, and they've submitted that and shown that they do have that. And then these walls, these interior walls, would be built with the development. So as you bought a lot, those walls would already be constructed on that east side. That was some of the conditions that they had.
So there's like an 8-foot wall, 16-foot, or two 8-foot walls?
Yeah.
And then another wall for the backyard beyond that?
Yeah, so you'd have two 8-foot walls here.
Okay.
So you can go 8, and then you can separate them by 4, and then go up 8. But that's the maximum per ordinance. That's considered one wall, and it's 16 feet. Then you have to separate the two walls by the height of the lower wall, and we'd consider those two 8-foot walls one wall, or 16 feet. So you have to separate them, and then they're going up two more 8-foot walls, and then you'd be to the back of the lots.
And then you
there.
have another 6-foot wall at the back of somebody's lot.
Privacy wall or something like that, more than likely. So that was one of the concerns Hillside had, was to have, planning commission and council look at the aesthetics of that. So again, here's another layout, just another aerial view. This is coming up from Riverside. This is the entrance road. These are the walls that you would see on that lot here and here as you come up the entrance road. And then this is just a view as you were coming up the road. So that's kind of some 3D renderings that they had that they presented as part of that. So I think that was all of the comments that Hillside had. And then the preliminary plat would be similar, just as, let's see, go back to that right here. So this is the preliminary plat too right there, so that's why I prefer just to run them concurrently.
Questions for Wes?
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
Did they mention what their plans were for that space in between those 8-foot walls? They're going to be natural vegetation. Hopefully it's not going to be anything that's landscaped or irrigated.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't, but that's a good question to ask the developer. But yeah, you need to avoid water in that area as much as possible, because water's what causes those rock walls to fail. And so, yeah, so we didn't discuss that though. That's something we can ask the applicant.
This is a tough piece. This one's crazy tough.
It is a tough piece.
Let's
and there's a reason it's been here for a long time undeveloped, because it is a hard piece.
On the north side, so where the stepped walls, those 3 stepped walls are, how's the setback work there? Is there still a setback based on, are we still looking at, ridge line? Or it's man-made ridge line? Is that what that is?
Yeah, so yeah, it kind of is, because really as we walk this site with the Hillside Committee, there really is no ridge line over here. It just kind of rolls off, and so we couldn't really establish a ridge line. The ridge line comes more into play about right there as you go around, and it was more definable, and we walked it and kind of identified it. But over here we didn't have a ridge line setback. However, on the rock walls, the ordinance says you have to set back your house either below or above the height of the rock wall. And so if you have the 2 8-foot walls there, we would consider that one wall, or 16 feet. So you'd have to set back, based on the rock wall ordinance, 16 feet to the structure.
From the top of the second step.
Yeah. So this is one wall. You separate it by 16 feet, and this acts as another wall based on their structural calculations. And that's what the ordinance says. And so you'd have to just set that house back 16 feet from the upper wall back 16 feet. That would be your setback.
Would you say we're in a gray area here because we are creating a ridge line? I mean, this is a concerning piece because, we have a knoll. And so it's everybody looks at it, right? Now, I'm not saying the knoll looks good now.
Right.
It's got some massive issues. So, an improvement could be great for this piece. I just want to make sure that we don't. Anyways, let me go back to my question. Would you say that we're in a gray area because we are at the top of a hill, we are creating a ridge? Do you think that's something that could be held to a setback? Because I think that's something we should look at.
Yeah, the ordinance doesn't really address it, but you are artificially creating a ridge line by putting in those walls. So that's a good question. And that's why Hillside kind of deferred, to Planning Commission and Council as far as aesthetics, because they realized that this was very visible from the community. As you drive up Mall Drive, you can see it, and they wanted to make sure that, it looked good and that everybody was comfortable with the way its appearance.
I'd be something I'd want to look at. I just look at Four Master Ridge, right when we're on the edge. I think there's been a lot of people that have had concerns with the setbacks there when they weren't existing, and this one being such a standout place. Plus, with 3 8-foot tiered walls right in front of it, I think we might be creating something. I got another question. Sorry, I got lots of questions on this. Is there an opportunity, do we have to do 8 foot up, 8 up, 8 over, 8 up, 8 over, or 8 up, 4 over, 8 up, 4 over? Is there an opportunity to do something that blends better like a slope? So like a wall, slope, kind of like what was done on the piece on Valley View?
I guess that's something we'll have to ask. The engineer, this is what they proposed, and I don't think they've gone into any detail in looking if they could tie in here and come up at a decent slope where they could blend it in and just do slopes. That's something we can ask the applicant. They're here.
That's a super good point, because then, if we could make it look more natural instead of like a fortress, because that's my fear with all those walls, is it just being on the top of that knoll, it just looks like this big fortress that's, you know, not very aesthetically pleasing. And then Wes, my other concern is over there on the south side, when you say they're going to try to mitigate, like they're going to push the dirt all the way to that very edge. What happens? I mean, that just doesn't even make sense to me, you know? I mean, so it gets done to level the lot out, but then what when people start building, when they start moving things, like how are we gonna control that if we let them do that clear to the edge?
Right.
Wouldn't it make sense to stay 10 or 15
May make
feet
sense
in?
to hold back, and I guess that's something we can ask the applicant. That's just what they had proposed, was taking that out there, but that's a good question. I don't have a good answer on that because, you know, as I talk to the inspectors, there's ways to do it, run equipment up there, but it's more like surgery than it is just bulldozing, because you have to do it a certain way to prevent that from. So that's a good question. That's something we can ask the applicant.
Does the applicant want to speak?
Hi, Adam Allen with American Land Consulting. Hey, and I appreciate all your guys' comments. We want to create a great project up there too. I actually used to work at Bush and Gudgel. I've been looking at this project for 5 years. Various different things have come forth. So if I could go into a little bit of what we've got going on there, because we did take a lot of those aesthetics and trying to make it not look like a fortress, you know, into account, because we, again, I know that some of the concern has been like on Four Master, you know, it goes right to the top of the ridge and you got the retaining walls and you're looking right up at it. So if you look at, sorry, I'm trying to get to the sections here and they're hard to zoom in. I don't know if I can zoom in on them, but in some of our areas, so anywhere along Riverside, we've tried to maintain the hill, right, the look of the ridge. So we went around it, looked at it, and we're not pushing any dirt out, we're cutting the dirt down, and so we're going to try to pull it away from there, and we've talked to various contractors about how to do that and maintain it and put up a good, you know, sturdy construction fence so nothing falls out while we're doing that process of it. But part of what we're doing, some of the retaining walls you see on like the southwest side are actually holding up the ridge to make it look and maintain that ridge line, so we're not putting, you know, cutting it out, having steps in that ridge line to try to maintain that as you're going along Riverside to look nicely. And then on the, sorry, this is actually the older grading plan. And then along this south side here, you know, they had a lot of the same concerns when we were out there at Hillside, but looking at this, you're so far away when you see it and it's really low. It looks, you know, an awful lot like, kind of like if you're looking at Stone Cliff from far away, because it is so far away, those aren't imposing and high above, you know, so when you're driving along Mall Drive out there, it's, you know, you're looking at it and it's almost eye level where those are at. So they're very, very low where those taller retaining walls were. And we're more than happy to look at a setback, you know, a larger setback, 20, 30-foot setback, something like that from those retaining walls, and maybe putting in an ordinance in our CCNRs that you can only do like a 3-foot wall with the iron, or maybe full iron along there to keep the views.
Could you talk a little bit about the step walls? So, I think we want to do something on this so we can. You're going to make it better than it is, I think. But we just want to do it right. Is there something that could be done other than those steps? Could you grade step to match? Maybe you already answered that question and I didn't catch it. Or do you understand what I'm asking?
Yeah. So you're thinking of, you know, like a smaller wall and then do some slope and then maybe a smaller wall, or just kind of all grading.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and I think we can look at that with the geotechnical engineer as well, because it's all pretty much reinforced with fabric, right? It's got the geofabric in there, and the rock wall's just the facing that holds that up. Not holds it up, but maintains that you don't have any like real, you know, drainage issues as the water coming down it. So, I mean, we can look into something like that. We haven't looked at that. We just didn't see anywhere in the ordinance where I could, you know, kind of do that sort of thing. So I kind of built this to what I thought I could, you know, for the ordinance.
Should we ask staff about the ordinance associated with that? Does that sound like something that's good
So, say that again. So, I'm sorry.
What we're trying to do is just mitigate the visual impact on the hill.
And you know, as I was thinking about it, some of the concern again out there was, and I don't know if they can pull it off, was adding additional weight on these lots, so bringing that slope all the way up. I don't know, that's something we'd have to look at with the geotechnical engineers because of the type of material. They were comfortable by removing all of this because then the soils could support that. I don't know, that's a good question. And I think Adam's right, we'd have to get back with the geotechnical engineers and see if there's a way to do that slope and make that work. I don't know, that's a good question.
Does anyone else have these thoughts or any other comments on it from?
You can keep commenting if you have more comments or questions.
Okay, I want to make another comment if I can. Go ahead. You were going to say something?
Yeah, so, I mean, we're more than happy to, like we said, put some slopes in between those as the geotechnical engineer will permit. As like we said, as far as the visualness of it goes, I don't know how much different it will look just because it'll kind of be that same color from so far away. So just something to, but we're more than happy to look at any of those options, add some slopes in there as permitted.
Okay. Here's one more question I have for you. I thought a lot about this one because this is a big, anyways. The one more question I have is revegetation on this hill. Right now it has 4-wheel drive trucks going up and down at everything. So the whole hill is a mess. As we put houses on it, would you be willing, is there a possibility of doing a revegetation around the parts of this hill that are super messed up? Yeah, that's what I mean by super messed up, yes.
Yeah, I don't think that'll be an issue for the land that we control. The majority of what we're going to do, bringing up this roadway in through here and building through this is really the really ugly area, probably the ugliest area that there is right there. There is some area over here that's all blue clay that they've got some roads on that come up through there that's not our property. But yeah, I mean, we could look at doing, I think there's another road that comes down through here that's kind of ugly, and that wouldn't be an issue to try to get some native revegetation back on there to kind of help it, look around. There's a couple roads going down through this whole area.
I just want to bring one item and make sure we're all on the same page. Adam just state. So before we got out there, I guess there's some archaeological ruins on this up above and down along the slopes. The slopes are going to remain as they are, but we had talked about, and I just want to make sure that you still are going to work with trying to find those.
Yeah, and I think we discussed that at the last city council, that we're currently working with everybody. We're doing we're moving those, as many of the rock art as we can, which anything that we're disturbing, we're moving those out of the way. We're burying the one site that's here on lot 2 per their request, not disturb it. We've worked with the geotech on how we can do that and not disturb that site and just build over it because we're putting so much fill on top of it. And then we're currently working with a couple groups that were suggested to us to see if there's some ways we can go in there and look. The biggest concern is mostly all of these have been really looted beyond just 1 or 2. Is there a burial or something like that? And so we're looking into some options with some people is there a way to go in there and see if there's a burial there, or can we have somebody out there on site while we're doing stuff to kind of look at that with us, or kind of those options, and we're getting some proposals in on that.
Wes, based on the soils report, what are we recommending in terms of engineering for the roadways?
So I visited with, that's a good question. I visited with the geotechnical engineer. So the roads up here, there's actually a crust that is above the blue clay, and it's about, it's 7 to 10 to 12 feet. And that's why it makes it work to develop that, because they're going to build on top of that crust. As we discussed, this portion of the road would be built in clay. He and I talked about how we're going to make that and stabilize that road, and some ideas that maybe going above and beyond what we normally require to be able to make sure that road will remain and will not slough or things like that. So that's something he and I talked about was that really this isn't such a worry. It's really that road coming up and making sure that the cross section, even we have to go excavate down more, put in more subgrade, something like that to make that work.
And Greg, I can see your point on 8 foot, 4 foot, 8 foot, but I also see the developer on where it's so high up and as far back as you are, you're not going to be able to tell if it's sloped or if it's stacked straight up. So I don't know. I don't know.
The revegetation might be a bigger deal than even the slope in the wall, but I don't know. It's hard to imagine because it's this cone that sits out there in the middle with visibility from every side. So the revegetation might be the bigger key.
Any more questions, comments? Motion?
I think there was enough conversation tonight that the entire recommendation might change based on what they come back to us with. Am I misunderstanding some of the recommendations?
Well, there's a few things I think we want to look at, from my opinion. I think we want to look at the setbacks for sure on that, which the applicant said that they would be willing to address. So I'd like to make sure, we're creating a ridge there, so I'd like to see a 30-foot setback. I'd like to look at the way that we can mitigate the walls, whatever that is, with the revegetation, with a stone that matches the current, something that just it makes it so we're not creating a big eyesore on the top of that. Then the other thing I'd like to look at is revegetate the hill, that the parts of the hill that the applicant controls or owns, which would include the old roads, any dirt or anything that gets pushed off as we're moving around the top of the hill stuff, and those things.
And then I would add just, I think we could go forward with the motion as long as we add all of those things, and then also just making sure that they work with the archaeologists to, do exactly what they said they're doing, which is great. That's what the archaeologists want them to do, is have somebody on site and make sure.
Yeah, we're okay with all that. We're okay with the setback on those walls. We're okay with all those things that were brought up. And the pictures, I didn't see them in here, but we did provide some pictures of actual rock walls that we're trying to get the rock for, so make it very, natural looking in there, so it doesn't look like we're creating something starkly different.
Yeah.
Well, I think Greg's got all the notes. He could make the motion.
Is there anything else anybody wants to address on this?
In the stability of the road, Wes talked about, that project around the corner, we just said, hey, you can have the road. It's a private road because we're worried about that. I'd be super concerned about that here as well.
Well, let's talk to Adam. Would you like the city to own this road?
Well, that was the intent behind my question to Wes a minute ago. We've discussed in the weeks that have lapsed here, we've discussed what kind of engineering standards we need to have these, roads ultimately last forever. We don't want them to fail. So I would be content with an enhanced engineering standard that addresses the soils, and I think we would be satisfied with that they could be publicly owned.
Does that need to be in the motion?
Yeah, we ought to go ahead and put it in there.
Yeah, and Paula probably can, and that's something that that I talked with the engineer about. One of his recommendations was, and you know state law better than I do, but I know there are instances where you could do a 2-year warranty bond, and I don't know if we could fall under that because of the soil conditions or something like that, where we extend it for another year just to make sure that those roads do hold up. Normally we would just require a 1-year warranty bond, but possibly this is a place where we could do something like that and have a 2-year warranty bond on these roads.
We could do that with this, where you have the geotech that's saying that it is a problem, that it's going to require the over-excavation and all of those standards to be met. It certainly would meet the requirements.
Okay.
Greg, take your best shot.
All right, I didn't get that exactly, so I don't exactly know what to say there. Maybe just one
A
on
2-year bond.
So we
2-year
do
warranty.
Yeah, we do a 2-year warranty bond at the end of when the subdivision is approved, we require a 2-year warranty bond on the roads and so forth and utilities instead of a 1 year, just because of the nature of the soil.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to take a stab at this. Feel free to amend anyone that want to make some mentions. So I would make a motion that we approve a hillside permit to allow for a single-family half-acre minimum lot size subdivision to be known as Nettis Knoll on approximately 32.84 acres located at the intersection of Riverside Drive and Four Master Drive with the following stipulations. Number one, that there is an enhanced engineering standard that is used on the roadway construction. Number two, that a 2-year warranty bond is placed on the road and utilities. Number three, that the setback on all homes on the ridge, whether they be man-made or natural, be 30 feet from the lip or the edge. Number four, that is the staff is to look at the best way to. So the staff will work with the applicant, and this one's kind of loose. We'll look at the best way to mitigate the walls, if it be a slope, if it be changing the color of the rock walls. Ultimately, we're trying to blend in. And then number five, that there's a stipulation that we revigorate the area. Is that the right word I'm looking for? Revegetate the area, which the applicant or owner owns on the lands that they own, to a natural state. This is to include any previous roads or any previous disturbances, and any issues that arise from construction, whether that be pushing dirt off the side or anything like that, so it comes back to a natural state on everything that they own.
And what about the archaeology?
And that we look at the archaeology and Daniel, would you like to assist me on?
Sure. Yeah, they just need to work with a professional archaeologist. The suggestion was that they have someone on site while they're doing the digs, just because there are sacred native burial sites up there.
Okay, so that we have someone on site with them and they take into consideration what we've talked about this evening, recorded in notes.
One thing I would ask you to add is that for the warranty bond, the 2-year warranty bond, that it's because of the soil conditions that it's needed.
Okay, and to addition, that because of the soil conditions, that is why the warranty bond is needed.
Got all that, Annette?
Second.
Motion by Greg, seconded by Danielle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, same 16 is the same.
Yeah, can I just keep the same amendments on 16? So I'll make a motion that we approve the preliminary plat for Nettis Knoll 21-lot residential subdivision located in the intersection of Four Master Drive and Riverside Drive with the same contingencies or items that are attached to item 15.
Second.
Motion by Greg, seconded by Bardell. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Oh, wait a second. I think in my rush, I didn't get that last one on there. Oh, there it is. Okay, the next item is a request to approve an amended plat called Aberley Farms Amended and Extended. It's a request to add one additional lot to the 7 lots. So here's the subdivision right here. Originally it was these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then this large lot here, 6. So they're adding just one lot right there. So now they'll have 7 lots within this subdivision right here on this roadway. That's the amendment.
Simple enough.
You want a motion, Mayor?
Yep.
Motion to approve the preliminary plat for Aberley Farms amended and extended, adding an additional residential lot for a total of 7 lots.
Second.
Motion by Danielle, seconded by Jimmy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Okay, the next item is a request to approve a preliminary plat for a 175-lot residential subdivision called Regency at Desert Color, Plat A. Site is located along Southern Spine Road in the Desert Color development. Property is 60.8 acres. Density is 2.88 dwelling units in acres. Zoning is PDR as part of the Desert Color development. Bob Hermanson is the applicant. So here's the location of this. Dan presented it already on the zone change. I'm not really going to go over it. The only one condition on this that we'll have to work out with the developers is what they would like to do is they would like to build right here where it's shaded in. They would like to build, and I'll zoom into that if I can. Oh my heavens, I didn't get it on there. Anyway, what they would like to do is they would like to build a model home center right here with parking right there, and basically shut the road off here so that over a 2 or 3 year period, as people want to buy within this Regency development, they can come in and look at the different unit types. And so you'd have unit types on all of those lots other than the 2 areas where there would be parking. And so this wasn't, they have a development agreement in Desert Color, but this wasn't really addressed in that development agreement. So we just put together a separate agreement that allows for this. Once the development's done, then we'd come back in and dedicate probably that portion there as a public roadway and go through that process. But these roads would be built with that first phase and dedicated so that if you came in here and decided you didn't want to, there was a way to get back out of the development and you wouldn't be captured in there. And so we just that's really the nuance with this one is we need to work out that development agreement for that model home center that they'd like to create.
So make that part of the motion.
Yeah.
Council ready for a motion?
Mayor, I'd make a motion that we approve preliminary plat for Regency at Desert Color Plat A, a 175-lot residential subdivision located along Spine Road in the Desert Color development. And what were we adding to that? That it would be
a development agreement for the model home center.
What he said.
I'm sorry.
Motion by Vardell, seconded by Danielle. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, the developers proposed to table the next 2 preliminary plats as they're under the same development so we can further discuss with them regarding access and layout and so forth. And so we will push the next 2 items to a later council agenda.
Do we know when?
I would say the next meeting.
Next regular meeting? So motion to table items number 19 and 20.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Did you get who motioned and seconded? It was motioned by Greg, seconded by Vardell, sorry.
Okay, the next item is request to approve a preliminary plat for a 2-lot commercial subdivision called U.S. Food Chef Store. Site is located at the southwest corner intersection of 3050 East and Panther Way. Number of lots is 2. This is in a C3 zone. So here it is right here. Here's Panther Way. This is the proposed parcel to be subdivided into 2 lots. And the proposal, this is their preliminary plat layout. So you'd have 1 lot that fronts here and the second lot that is here. They would share an access based on their layout. This is where they want to put their store, and really the only location you could do an access on that road would be right there. So they'd have to have a cross access as lot 2 would gain its access from lot 1. And so we just have to work that out. They also would be required, 3050 East is kind of changing, and we don't have a lot of sidewalk, but we're going to require them to put in sidewalk along there now as 3050 East kind of transforms more into a light industrial commercial area.
So they would share the ingress and egress?
They would. Their access would, because here's the access to Costco, that's about where their building is. You're getting too close to 3050, and so I think it's somewhere in this neighborhood, but we wouldn't allow one here because of its proximity to 3050 East. Yep.
Council, I'm ready for a motion.
Mayor, a motion that we approve a preliminary plat for U.S. Food Chef Store, a 2-lot commercial subdivision located at the southwest corner of the intersection of 3050 East and Panther Way.
Second.
Motion by Vardell, seconded by Brian. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Really quick on that one. Wes, will there eventually be a light there? Or is it?
I don't think so. I think, because we met, darn it, where is that one now? Oh, it's right here. I think when we met with, I'm just going off my memory because we've been talking with the Sandburg people, and I think their road comes up and ties in at 850 north, not 750 north, and that's where the signal will go, because it'll tie into Washington all the way over, come all the way through the Sandburg property and up. I'm kind of drawing it for you, but yeah, and I think it comes into 850 north. It lines up with that, not 750 north. So you'd have, those would be too close.
Okay.
Yep.
Michelle, you're up.
I'm just basically here to answer questions. This is a resolution that was typewritten in 1990, and we worked with David Pack to kind of just update it. And it was supposed to be passed through about 6 months ago, and we just realized it never was. So it made it to the agenda, but didn't make it through. So I think it's pretty straightforward. We didn't change a lot. We just made a couple updates so that we can move forward.
It was probably
in the
time
future.
For an update. Yeah. If there's no questions for Michelle, I'll take a motion.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution reauthorizing the St. George Arts Commission and providing for organization of the commission and describing its activities and functions.
I'll second that.
Motion by Danielle, seconded by Greg. All in favor, starting with Vardell.
Aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. I don't have any appointments. Any reports? Vardell.
Had the opportunity to meet this morning out at Snow Canyon State Park with the park manager and also County Commissioner Adam Snow. It was really quite interesting to see all the things that they have going on out there and continue to grow even despite COVID. And in fact, I think COVID was almost an opportunity for them with staycations and people that were anxious to get out and about and knew that Utah was open for that type of recreational opportunity. So very interesting. It sounds like representatives from Santa Clara and Ivins and St. George and the county will meet a couple of times a year to be able to just be updated and review that. And it was very interesting. I was happy to be able to do that today.
Thank you. Greg?
Not tonight.
Brian?
Nothing.
Nope.
Danielle?
Just put on your calendars October 12th, 6 to 8 p.m. Our Youth City Council will be sworn in. And then just a reminder also, next Wednesday at 2 o'clock, they're doing a meet and greet at the Children's Museum to meet the new director.
That's next
Wednesday.
Wednesday?
Yeah.
Tell me the time again.
2 p.m. It's actually 2 to 4, and it's an open house, so drop in anytime. And then I guess I'll just mention...
And October what again? For the
October 12th is the swearing in of the Youth City Council. I'm sure everyone saw the Iron Man announcement. I think, it's really a big deal that they are going to let us have it again.
Big deal.
It's a big deal because they very rarely, I am actually just shocked that they said, okay, we're going to come back because, this year we're not going to get the full-blown deal because there's so many people that their countries are restricting them from coming because of the uptick in the virus. So it's really cool. And actually, the hard work, most of the hard work is done. We've set the stage for it. So we actually get to do it twice. It's going to be really neat.
It's so cool.
What's pretty amazing, Mark was talking to me today, and he's saying that we're one of the only cities that has been able to hold 4 world championships for the Ironman. So that's pretty amazing in itself.
Today, if my sister's watching, because she gets bored and she watches this because I don't think she has anything else to do, but she's going to say, you said, she's going to tell me exactly how many times I said, and I just said, and I caught myself. So, Emily Pinkelman is Adam's new assistant, and I get to share her. And she created a calendar for the council today, and I don't know if she sent that out to you yet. If she has, that's where we will put this information for ribbon cuttings or youth city council, and where you can go in, and if you're going to miss a council meeting, you can say, I won't be there on this date. That way, it just saves a lot of texting and emailing to find out who may be gone and who's here. And so please take advantage of that calendar, because that will be very helpful, and she's right on top of it. And so
It's here. I got it.
Oh, perfect. So she's great. So we appreciate that. And then I really don't have anything. Got to go to a UAMPS conference with Lori Mangum. We're very, very fortunate to have Lori, because they're, I'm not going to say this on record. So we're very fortunate to have Lori running our energy department. And there was a lot of acronyms I had to Google while we were there. And but I learned a lot, and we're fortunate to have the diverse power that we have and not just rely on one or two sources. So grateful for Lori and all she does there, and grateful that I was able to go and attend that. So, and we don't have need for a closed session. So with that, I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Danielle, seconded by Brian. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
I doubt there's any opposed. Okay.